Ciao raga, welcome back to Sun Tzu Secrets. Today we are back in English for an amazing podcast episode with my friend Richard. Richard, welcome to the channel. Richard is the organizer of the Old World event at London GT. So welcome. So happy to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Teresa. I really appreciate it and excited to talk today, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we were saying, London GT and in particular the Old World event has been, I would say, one of the highlights of this tournament season for the Old World in particular. As we kind of know, I live in New York. My partner is in Italy, so we attend a lot of events, a lot of tournaments, GTs, 2 days, 1 day, team tournaments, and it really looks like, your event has been outstanding in terms of attendance and trend in general. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that. I feel the same way. It was such an exciting thing to be part of, and obviously it's alongside so many other events that you just feel like part of a massive community that transcends, like Old World as well. But I mean, focusing on the Old World, it was, I think, the second biggest kind of independent event outside of kind of Warhammer World itself to this date. That's about to be broken by the Welsh Open that we've got over here in the UK. Actually, I think we're going to have 80 players for that. But I mean, it's a sign that the scene is growing, that it is a massive highlight. People had fantastic looking armies. We had really great looking games. People had a fantastic, a wonderful time, and it was a pleasure to kind of host it and be part of that for sure.
Yeah.
I can't wait to kind of see what's next and talk about it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we are all sharing the same excitement around the Old World. And as you said, like when it comes to independently organized events, so let's not consider anything GW directly run, which is of course different. But like I think there's this kind of very friendly and fun kind of competition between LVO and London GT because they host the two biggest, I think, events for 40K. And I was telling Richard before we went live, I was just in Vegas like 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And your event happened the week before. So it's kind of like, it's this little, back and forth between the two sides of the oceans.
Definitely, yeah. Andy Garcia very nicely used some of the images that I had from our pack, and I know that he did a great job over there, and I know that everyone over there had a great time as well. And it just shows like what a great spot we're in. And there was some insane guy, I think he was a 40K player, but traveling from LGT to LVO and doing this kind of like road trip style stuff alongside it. And yeah, I mean it is great, and I would love for that to be something that we could do for the Old World at some time in the future.
Yeah, which actually brings me to one of the things that I was actually keeping for after, but like you just triggered my question now is, how do you see? I mean, we all know that the Old World is growing, right? So it's a game that started probably as a specialist game in the mind of the studio at GW, and probably it kind of they said it themselves, right? So the scope has changed. So of course they see this like growing more, and even it's news of today they are releasing an entire new box for the Chaos Warriors, for Marauders, like on foot and on horse. So they are investing a lot. And I think that with it should come at some point some sort of community effort that includes the Old World in terms of big events. Because as we know, right, so there's no real international circuit with golden tickets and such for the Old World, right? So I think
Not so
that
far,
is
yeah.
right. So isn't that something that you, as a tournament organizer, would welcome for our game?
Yeah, 100%. I think that, we had a guy from Malta, Daniele, who came over just specifically for LGT, and it really shows that there's the kind of an appetite for international play. Obviously, WTC, which I'm sure that you'll be talking about and have heard about and everything, really shows that there's the appetite from the player side for that to exist. And I definitely think that with Old World matching in some places the player numbers of games like Age of Sigmar as well, there's certainly kind of scope for that to be the case and for it to feature on the bigger stage. Whether or not Games Workshop will work that out for themselves, or whether or not they'll need it to be demonstrated to them over time by the community being amazing and continuing to grow. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And listen, so why don't we like just start talking about your event, because it has been, as I said, amazing. So I feel blessed to have you interviewing on the LGT. I was in Vegas, so I had a great time with Andy, and he was also actually, we were texting, and that's how we came to you should reach out to Richard and talk about LGT. So, and I was like, that's an amazing idea. So here we go. So this is
Awesome.
the tournament packet that you prepared for the old world event. So let's start
That's
from
right.
the players, because it ended up being more than 64 players. Tell us a little bit about the story behind the numbers, because I saw them growing. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I took over from another TO coming into the London Grand Tournament, and originally it was supposed to be Richie and Tom, who are the captain and vice captain of Team England,
Yeah.
that were supposed to be hosting this. But obviously the WTC event, the World Team Championships event in Germany, happened on the same weekend, which again is a great sign because we had great player numbers at LGT, and obviously we had all of those amazing players over in Merlin, Germany as well at the same time. But it basically meant that I kind of like fell into this very happily, and was really kind of pushing to get players who were not necessarily kind of on the international team, not part of those teams, to the event. And so I kind of styled my pack as I do for a lot of my other smaller events towards the kind of, let's say, bottom 80%. That in no way lesser to the top 20%, but I kind of try and make my events as approachable and accessible as possible. And I think people kind of responded to that. We might get to the rules later and have slightly different opinions about whether or not it's approachable and accessible, in terms of how kind of certain factions did and certain armies ended up playing out. But yeah, it was great to see those player numbers grow. And I think we had something nuts like 76 sign up, but we had quite a few drops because of WTC. There were quite a few players who didn't realize that the World Team Championships was going to clash at the same weekend.
Was thinking.
Um, but we had a wonderful turnout anyway, and it was I think 66 players signed up and ready, and 64 players who lasted the kind of whole length of the weekend, which was an amazing kind of achievement. Because yeah, we were capped at 64, and then I managed to squeeze a couple of extra spaces in, and then we ended up completely filling out that 64 still anyway. So yeah, really really pleased.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, and then I was looking at the on Best Coast Pairings, I was looking at all the tournament numbers, because I was also interested to see again who was winning between 40K, between LVO and LGT. Um, and then I look also like in comparison to Age of Sigmar, and by no means this is meant to be like a competition, because it's not. Of course, they're two different games. I'm personally super happy that we have both games, because I think it's just great for the fantasy setting in general. Um,
For sure.
but I was surprised to see that the numbers were basically tied. So besides the drops, the dropouts that you mentioned because of the WTC, I mean the numbers were pretty much the same. I was surprised in London, UK. So I was, you know, that
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
were you expecting that?
I wasn't, no, to be honest. We had like a last minute change in terms of where we were supposed to be in the venue, because Games Workshop actually attended LGT for the first time in quite a while, and so they nicked our spot in the hall, and that meant that we were right next to Age of Sigmar, and that we were able to kind of assess the size of kind of each of our areas. And when I saw that we'd booked out pretty much the same space, it was great. Yeah, I was really surprised, and like you said, it's a great thing for not only Old World, but fantasy in general, to have kind of two strong side events to the massive 40K event that's going on, and two kind of like real centerpieces for the year in each of those games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I mentioned, I was in Vegas, and I attended one of those nice meet and greet events that GW is doing for tournament organizer, because I also co-organize tournaments in the US.
Awesome.
And I was there with my partner there, and it was just like great to hear firsthand from people that are working in the GW event team, that they're like, we are looking into growing the eventing and boosting the event part for anything Warhammer, not only of course the Old World or Age of Sigmar, but it's of course 40K, which is the star of the portfolio. But and then I saw I think about a week before, 2 weeks before, that new article that came up on Warcom, where they were talking about this Paris event. So it looks like, it's moving, it's growing, it's getting bigger. And I think, and if that's the case, I would be thrilled about that. GW is really getting that the core of this game, it's the
Yeah.
community, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I didn't know that you had that kind of meet and greet out there at LVO. That was great. We had a few people coming around the tables and having a look and saying, "Oh, well, I'm just having a look to see what army I'm going to buy next," kind of coyly, rather than being, super open about what they were actually looking at. I mean, well, maybe they were actually just looking for what army they want next. Some of the armies did look really amazing, but that's really cool and that sounds really positive. And I'd really like to see the event scene continue to grow, because it's so good. Not just from, I mean, people talk a lot about the competitive element, but a lot of it's like socializing and that community aspect. Yeah.
100%. So yeah, so great. I think, as I always say, we are living in a new golden age for the fantasy games. So hopefully we will witness this developing further and further as we progress.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's deep dive a little bit into your player packet. So let's help people that maybe didn't attend the event to understand what they missed, so that they can come in next year. And by the way, if you're watching us for the first time, please click subscribe, activate the little bell so that you receive all the notification for our new videos. Because, as you all know, guys, we are an Italian YouTube channel for the old world, but we're also like coming out with a lot of English contents. We just had Richie and Tom before the WTC. We're going to host them again to let us know how they did, and they did pretty good. They are the world champions now. So click subscribe, click like. Thanks everybody watching now. Richard, like,
Mhm.
bring us to a LGT.
Sure. Yeah, totally. So I'll skip to this slide, which is a bit of an overview. It was a 2,000 point event. 5 games, 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, the kind of typical thing that we have over here in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it's the same over there in the US as well.
Yeah.
We were using a combination of grand melee and combined arms from the new match play guide. I think so, releasing so fast, I say new, but it actually doesn't feel that new. It's already kind of embedded quite well. I chose my own kind of selection of secondaries. Going back to what I was saying about kind of remaining accessible and approachable, I kind of made some picks that were not quite in line with what the match play guide said, but things I've had kind of good experience with over the years, not only in the old world, but kind of in other systems as well. And then I did my rankings based on win, loss, draw first, and then tournament points using the match play guide 6-0 system, and then victory points.
Okay, fantastic. So I love this. I think what we're seeing, especially after what I call the 1.5 patch that they released in July, alongside with the match play guide, I think we're seeing kind of a trend that it's like overall everywhere, everyone's using Remily and combined arms together, because
Mhm.
if they're taken, singularly, they both have, let's say, some issues in terms of balancing, probably. Um, 5 games, sometimes even 6 games, but it's usually 5 games as a size of the event. 2,000 points seems to be the norm. Um, I'm interested in the legacy faction, which I know it's a hot topic for anybody who loves and like the old world. But we also know that it's not easy for a corporation like GW to manage that many factions over 2 different game systems with basically the same units sometimes.
Yeah.
So I know that it's always a little bit of a, choice, right? I know the Warhammer World official events, they don't, of course, allow the legacy faction as per GW, but looks like even the big events, like yours, like LVO, Nova Open, like everyone else that is running the old world wants the legacy faction.
Yeah, definitely. I'm personally a massive advocate for their inclusion. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I use stuff like Renegades. We didn't use the Renegades pack at LGT, but I was a player that saw the impact of kind of the end of the old world. My dad was a third-party stockist. I never really played before, but I used to read the army books, sit in the store, kind of get into the lore of it and everything as a kid. And so I think I feel passionately that if you have an army that is part of that world, you should be able to use it. Not necessarily win with it, but you should still be able to use it. And
Bring it.
we did get rules in the legacy army rules, and so kind of for any events, as much as I can do, I'm going to do what I can to support the legacy armies and make sure that they are kind of in the pack without trying to go and change too many things that I personally feel like isn't necessarily what Games Workshop would be kind of happy to see. But I mean, I don't know. Legacy, like you said, is such a difficult topic.
I
It's
know.
yeah, but it's great that we have the legacy rules, and it's great that the Renegades pack exists so that people who want to use them in that way can use them in that way. And I think there's room to explore other ways to continue to support them as well, which I think is really positive.
Yeah, and again, it comes down again to what we were saying earlier about the community and the fact that the group of people and the aggregation of people around the game, it's what's most important. Then yes, it's a legacy faction. And listen, if GW didn't want those armies at all, they wouldn't even have done the PDFs, but they did it, and they were like, listen, you're welcome to use them. It's just like not at our official events, which I mean, I get it, but we are also hearing a lot of rumors around, so we know that stuff can change, and we kind of witnessed that with Cathay just being released and all of that. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we'll see, because I also discovered recently that in Horus Heresy the legacy factions are like actually admitted for tournaments, so they might even change their minds. Maybe, who knows, we'll see.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also love the idea of the win, loss, draw rankings priority. So when there's a tie, it means, if I'm understanding correctly, if people are tied with tournament points, then you look at the win, loss, draw. So if even if you have more tournaments point, but like you lost the game and the other guy, for example, made a draw but didn't lose a single game, the guy that didn't lose will be first, right?
Yeah, that's it exactly. I think there are like pros and cons to whichever way round you want to do it. But certainly for me, and especially if I look at other sports, I described Warhammer as a sport then, but a competitive
It is, yeah.
event, then I think that a lot of them use wins. It's extremely easy for anyone to kind of understand, and I think for me that's a real key. If you're looking at someone who's maybe had 2 or 3 losses and then still coming top, there's that tiny twinge of confusion if you don't necessarily understand what's going on inherently. And so for me, that's why I think win, loss, draw kind of comes out on top in terms of the priority of scoring for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And by the way, LVO was exactly the same. So Andy made the same choices. So we will have a podcast with him. And but I love
Awesome.
to see this consistency throughout. Even across the pond. It's great to see that there's some sort of top level alignment and consensus between the TOs on what's really what should really be the way forward. And nobody will.
Yeah, it's happening. I think there's a bit of an initiative at the moment in the UK and Ireland to try and kind of get things in order for 2026, and obviously a lot of people reach the same conclusions on their own, and when people are reaching the same sort of conclusions on their own, it's like a good indication that we're heading in the right direction together, right? So that's great.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so I'll just move on to the army composition in detail. Obviously, we were using Grand Melee and Combined Arms, and then Legacy Factions, Mercenaries, Arcane Journals, named characters were permitted, but allies were not permitted, which I think is pretty standard fare, right, for most events these days. I'd love to run an allied event just to test the theory about whether or not it would break everything, but maybe not for LGT. I felt quite a lot of pressure going into it to try and get it right.
Yeah.
I did have some additional rules. These are kind of the FAQs on top of the FAQs, I suppose. So I was using the community FAQ, kind of shorthand COMFAQ, which
so
TOs
you were using Comfax. Okay.
Yes, yeah. That kind of underpinned everything in terms of the FAQs that were kind of in play. My personal style of TO is that if it's agreed between both players, then pretty much anything can happen between those two players on the board if they agree that's how the game works. I'm not going to be stood over forcing people to check Compact for exactly how the game
Oh yeah.
works. But I had kind of instituted Compact as that kind of basis, because the way that the kind of rulings are voted in, irrespective of what you think of the ruling specifically, is quite good, with the amount of people and representation from across the different parts of the world.
Yeah.
But we also had a bunch of questions above that.
Mhm.
And Cathay was already looming in the distance as the kind of Balloonageddon. What should we do about it? So for me, this was back at Cathay release, trying to figure all this out and work out what I needed to do to try and make sure that not all of the results are predetermined. That's kind of my bar, and so I came up with this specific character mounts restriction that we've got here, which was essentially trying to be kind of long looking in terms of creating a rule that wasn't just screw sky lanterns, and it was just about ensuring that we had lists that didn't have 5 or 6 sky lanterns in it, and instead um,
Yeah.
2 or 3, which it still turned out to be extremely powerful. But we didn't see the kind of uh, amazing Sky Lantern spam that could have been. And
Yeah.
events are going to learn from LGT as well, and the results that we had there for
Pre-
sure.
Precisely, and I think you raised some very interesting points. And by the way, for whoever is watching the show, um, when we refer to Comfax, for whoever doesn't know them, these are like unofficial community created clarification to the rules, where and when GW doesn't have an official answer yet. That's where the community steps in and takes some decisions in order not to change the game, but in order just to rule in a uniform and a cohesive way certain situations that can arise during the game. So for example, when you flee and you have the fly rule, do you flee flying or do you flee by ground? Then finally GW fucked it, but it's like it's that's the purpose of the Compact. So those were in use. I appreciate, by the way, I'm a Cathay player. So just coming back from LVO, I went in second and Kevin won with Cathay. So we did first and second. So, and
Awesome.
again, the limits were exactly the same as you made. So 0-2. But if you have a Lord Magistrate or a strategist as general, you can, of course, field an extra one as special. So 3. Yes, that turned out to be very strong, but at least we are seeing some different list coming out, not necessarily 5 or 6 lanterns as you can do, as you said, and now even ambushing, so we don't want that. But that is a great first step. And I must say that it also come down a lot to pairings and to the fact that people will naturally adapt to it. So, I mean, I might be biased because I invested a few hundreds of dollars to make my Cathay army, which I'm very proud of. So now I want to play it. Um, but I'm also like, you don't want to be oppressive in the way you play with those lanterns that are really like just bumping you and that's it. However, there are already certain pairings that are very tough for Cathay. So, for example, I couldn't win the tournament because I got 2 mirror matches, which indeed help balancing, which is a
Yeah.
point. And then I had an Orcs and Goblin tribes with 12 fanatics and 7 war machines. So it's like, well, that is a
Wow.
good answer to lanterns and Shug Lords and all that. So, but appreciate the additional rules. I think that was an amazing pick for an early tournament into Cathay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to kind of come in swinging hard with the ban hammer or anything silly like that. I strongly believe, as you just said, people invest a lot of money into a new army, and one of the kind of additional things that sucks about the way that the balance has kind of panned out is that people like yourself have to worry about being oppressive for an army that they've just invested in without ever necessarily putting it on the table. But the great thing is that we were kind of aware of that and able to make this early change. And there's already kind of changes to make sure that people can still play Sky Lanterns, but to make sure that Sky Lanterns are not necessarily having that kind of strong impact, like you said about the ambushing Sky Lanterns, that they definitely could have otherwise. And I'm sure it'll be something that's kind of responded to in an upcoming FAQ or errata or something. I don't know,
Yeah,
but I'm
they
sure
would fix them. They would fix them at some point.
definitely.
They can't just do it 2 months after. I
Hmm.
think something similar happened with the Blades of Corns for Age of Sigmar. So they released them. I'm not maybe I'm saying like the name wrong, but I'm just getting into Age of Sigmar now, so I'm not sure I'm saying this run right. But they released a Corn tome that was just like obliterating everything, and then 6 months later they kind of, or even earlier, they kind of like, no, 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 it's just a little bit less, and now it's too less, so now people are not using it anymore. So it's always hard, to find that
Yes.
balance. So that's why sometimes, adding some rules or like clarifying a few points, making some slight erratas are helping the entire game to become more enjoyable, right?
Yeah, for sure. Light touch and kind of, I know that not everyone has the same faith that I do, but faith in the makers of the game, especially over time. I think people want everything to be fixed immediately, but you know, if toys people have toys, they should be able to use them for a bit. I think Leagues of Votan and 40K went through a similar experience of being a
It's
brand
always the
new army that
case.
was
Yeah.
released, and you know now they're going to kind of, well, not Leagues of Votan, but Cathay is at some point going to rotate out of that amazing top tier, and something else will be there instead. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So some other things I had. So for the Green Knight, instead of preventing it from charging, I instead made it score 100% of its points as soon as it died the first time. I
Okay.
passionately believe in this, even though I know the Green Knight, much like Sky Lanterns, caused a lot of on the table trauma for players at a certain point in the game's history. I think it should be one of the best units in the game, and I think that removing its charge first turn means that you just don't pick it anymore. And I found this to
Correct.
be a decent balance because we had a couple of Green Knights in the field, but unlike the LGT in the previous year, it wasn't dominating everything. And most importantly, it wasn't kind of jumping out of vortexes or hills and stuff, which was the interpretation that another TO had. It was only coming out of forests this time. Um, Another Cathayan one, that the Grand Cannon effect doesn't stack, just because that from a tournament organizer point of view, and my profession is actually as a games user researcher. I understand
Okay.
that movement is extremely important in the game, and so the having the ability to kind of reduce someone's movement to 1 inch could be a very abusable. So
It's
that's why I
abusive.
ruled it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love the word, and I went through the entire slides where you were talking, and I think like I love the Green Knight fix, because I agree with you. Otherwise, if you don't let him charge day turn one, you basically remove a lot of the sense of that piece, because he also doesn't have Swift Stride, cannot come out from
yeah,
anywhere, and you will force the opponent to think about it when they deploy, which is part of the strategy. So
yeah,
I like the idea that that piece is virtually immortal between being ethereal and coming back, So I like that. But then the big elephant in the room is the Grand Cannons from Grand Cathay. So Andy actually ruled the other way around. So it's
mhm,
nice to
mhm.
see that there was like both, flavors happening at the same time. Um, and as a, of course, Cathay player, I didn't want to go too hard, so I didn't put three loaders in my cannons. I only had one
Sure.
loader and three cannons. But like with them stacking, as you said, it's abusive. Because at some point I played against, I think it was an Orc and Goblin, and he like at turn three, I think he was like, "I give up." It's like my goblins have movement zero.
Mm.
So what do I? I mean, what do I do? And with my Asmic Mirage on top, it's like you just don't make me play the game. So what can I do? So I like that, and I think this will probably be part of some erratas coming, so they will not stack. That's my feeling, but I might be wrong.
Yeah. It's always difficult to predict, isn't it? But yeah, I think that yeah, we've seen evidence of it, and like you were just talking about another player's experience, and so yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I'm pleased that I put that one in. We had a couple of things on the match play guide,
Yeah.
just in terms of how strategic locations and reserves and drawn battle lines work. I think the way that the wording for reserves and drawn battle lines is actually done means that people could bring them in on anyone's turn. But
Hmm.
I think it's reasonably clear that it should only be kind of your turns.
Yeah.
So I kind of went that way with it. And then finally, maybe the weirdest ruling that I came up with was on cannons and shooting. I was struggling with this one quite a lot. It's just a general discussion about how cannons should shoot. And I know from some kind of subsequent discussions in the community FAQ server that this came up a lot at WTC as well. But it's essentially kind of what cannons can shoot at, not necessarily target, because obviously the target point needs to be visible, but can they shoot at something that's behind a wood that they don't necessarily know is there, and so on and so forth. And the introduction of that Grand Cathay ability to be able to kind of neuter movement in an area of effect kind of it gave me a legitimate reason to think actually maybe I don't want to shoot at a unit. I want to shoot between 2 or 3 units to try and reduce the movement of all of
Yeah.
those. And so I decided to kind of go with a and sorry, before I go on to that, there was also the argument, knowing that Cathay was going to be really strong, that armies like Empire, especially the Nuln list,
The known.
and Dwarves to some degree, kind of rely on having cannons to be able to do like have an impact. And so I didn't want to kind of neuter their ability to deal with Cathay or whatever army they were facing by preventing cannons from shooting at things they couldn't necessarily see, but could kind of using the kind of raw version of the rules they would be able to. So I allowed people to pick a point at the front of the wood and shoot through the wood rather than kind of stop in the wood or anything like that. I allowed people to try and overshoot impassable terrain and overshoot hills and things like that. Obviously not bounce through, because it's clear in the rules that you shouldn't be bouncing through. But one thing I did say is that unless there is a unit in the wood to target, my interpretation of, I think it's arboreal gloom, is that you wouldn't be able to pick a point within the wood. You can only pick the kind of front of the wood.
The front edge of the wood. And it's funny
Yes,
because like I love this, and for the record, I didn't see this PPT in advance, so this is the
for
first
sure.
time I'm seeing the slides, and it's so good to see this because we had a long, very long conversation in one of our groups in Italy for the Italian Federation, because I'm also part of the board of the Italian Federation of Warhammer The Old World, and we were
Awesome.
discussing in the referee section precisely this point, is like, how do we manage this points on the board? And we were just doing the example of the wood. We actually came down to the conclusion that, in order to make it easier and like more as rule as written, you can target any point within the wood up until the edge of the far side of the wood, which is different from your interpretation. But I completely see the point and understand the necessity at some point to kind of take a decision or a direction to that, because there is an over spam of cannons right now, which makes it at some point like a needed decision to take. Same
For
thing
sure.
with I mean, I'm honestly, and my 2 cents, not that it matters anyway, but I'm not like a big fan of the idea that the cannon should aim for a target, for a point on the battlefield. It's more like you clearly shoot at a unit. So you should be able to elect the target by seeing it. So it's not that I can randomly shoot behind a hill, or even, for what it's worth, even behind an impassable terrain. Because
Mm-hmm.
as of today, I can technically do that. Because if I just like choose a point and then with the first roll I go behind the obstacle or the impassable, I can hit you, and that makes no sense. I'm behind the mountain. you know how come
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
hit me?
That was the feedback I got. That was because I was very raw based on allowing that overshooting. But for the subsequent pack, the kind of next event I'm running for UKTC, I've made it so that people can't overshoot hills and impassable terrain, and we'll see what impact that has on on the outcomes of things,
Yeah,
basically. So
beautiful.
yeah, because I totally get it. From a narrative perspective, you're like, you can't see me. What are you shooting at? So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
totally.
Yeah. So, but again, like, not easy, not an easy thing, but we'll see. Because I also have a feeling that there will be some sort of the old world second edition, not super far away from now. Like, it's not gonna be probably a 2026, but I don't think it's that far off. And then maybe they will change some stuff. But it's great exercise in the meantime. So
Definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
And things are going to be developing and, growing through that whole time in the community at Games Workshop, everything. So yeah, really excited
yeah,
to see how it goes. Um, the scoring, as I said earlier, was based on win-loss draw first, but then the matched play tournament points, so the 6-0 system. Um, this was the second time I'd been at an event. I'd first played one that was using it as their primary kind of differentiator. Instead of win loss draw, they were using the 6-0 system kind of as written out of the match play guide. And so this was the second time I was using it. Again, it was fresh. I wanted to give it a good run out, but certainly the feedback from the players that were there, and even from a tournament organizer perspective, I think 20-0 system is probably what I'm going to be using from now on. I like how 6-0 brings people together, closer together in brackets. But I think on the tabletop, the way that it plays out is that the scores don't necessarily always make as much sense. And players that are winning really hard, and the best players that are doing really, really well, are not necessarily seeing that kind of level of detail and kind of how they end up falling in the results in terms of, are they actually in with more of a chance of winning than someone who's not done as well as them? Maybe not. So we'll see going forwards.
yeah. That's a great that's another great point. I mean, I'm loving this deck because you're tackling all the open questions that it's kind of like they're everywhere. So LVO
Mm-hmm.
made the 020. I'm sure you know. I loved
Mm-hmm.
it. The way Andy did it, it's more like, and I don't know if you ever played the Ninth Age. In the period where Warhammer The Old World wasn't there and fantasy was dead. So they came up with this 20-0, but with every single point in between. So it's 20-0, 19-1, 18-2, 17-3, and so far so forth. On the other side, in previous iteration of the game, especially I think 6th edition and 7th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, GW itself came back with a 20 system that was more like 20, 17-3, 13-7, 10-10, which is, when you think about it, the same exact table as we see here, but with, a larger amount of points that can avoid a
Yeah.
little bit better, tied situations. And we made that exercise in the, uh, as I was mentioning, in our federation,
Mm-hmm.
and they came up with some conversion tables. And when you look at it, you can easily translate the 6-0 to a 20-0 with the brackets I just said. So
Mm-hmm.
food for thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting to see kind of this new system, this new 6-0 system emerge. And it's really good to be able to compare it to the 20-0 system, whether or not it's the old one or whether or not it's that Ninth Age one that was developed as well. I like the granularity that the 20-0 system gives. I think if I had to design a perfect system, maybe it would be like a 15-point system or something like that, so you don't get people who are just totally running away with it. But because I use win loss draw as my first kind of I
Tiebreaker.
guess tiebreaker, I think that has like slightly less impact on it anyway, because obviously
Yeah.
it's all based on whether or not you win.
Yeah.
So
I agree with.
um, onto my scenarios.
Oh,
So
this gets
yeah,
spicy.
here we go. Here we go. So no special features in this. That was partly because I could not get the special features ready in time for the tables. Because we were
Mm.
trying to get so many tables ready, we couldn't get enough special features sorted out in time. So we've ended up going, especially with round 2, where I would love to have a beautiful special feature in the center of the board with strategic locations too. But we went with a kind of whole host of missions apart from King of the Hill, which I did a bit of playtesting with and kind of was looking at beforehand, and I knew immediately it was a very skewed mission. Let's say, did you play that at LVO?
No, not in the way that was played in other tournaments. No, we did not. So in LVO, we did your round 5, precisely the same, encirclement and strategic location 4. Then we did close quarters with baggage train, and I think it was strategic location 3.
Hmm.
Then drone battle lines, strategic location 3. Yes,
Hmm.
we didn't do a chance encounter. I mean, we did strategic locations too, but not with chance encounter. Um, and we did the exact same round 1 with upon the field of glory and domination. So basically, Andy didn't go for that more weird, if you will, deployment, which, like, I was also curious to hear, because some of our Patreons, by the way, on our channel, they were like asking some of questions. Some they were asking us about, like, oh, how should we deploy, because that's very different from everything else. I'm having a hard time with Bretonia to deploy. I don't know what to do, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So I think it would have been nice to see that at LVO. So how was it? Like, did the player appreciate that?
Yeah, it does make you think in a very different way, because if you're, at that real corner point next to that 18-inch circle, um, you're not actually 18 inches away from each other. You could be within charge range if you're a cavalry unit or something like that, if they deploy really close to you on the other side. So it does make people think. Um, I think it's a little bit more complex, because obviously you're not just kind of measuring generic inches from a specific side. You have to think about kind of the kind of 2 axes and that circle in the middle. But I think it provides an interesting challenge for players, and people were very complimentary overall of the scenarios that were picked. The main piece of feedback that I got actually was that people would like to see some more missions at play within the same kind of scenarios, um, as well as people who, who you kind of always get the feedback of saying, oh, it's difficult to kind of score things like strategic locations and remember to add them up every time and keep track of who's scored what and things like that. So I think there's a balance to find there. One of the kind of interesting thing that I did, I guess, say interesting very arrogantly. I just something else I did was use the secret missions of assassination and bounty hunter. I played another event in the UK, the Black Country GT, where they used something called assassination, and it was just kill your enemy's characters, and it's pretty much the exact same in the secret missions. And so I decided to kind of add a couple of those in instead of allowing them to be secret. I just picked them very overtly as other ways that people could score
Mm.
secondaries. But yeah, certainly round 2, a chance encounter. Um, I quite like the mission from when I've played it, and the feedback that I got on that specific mission is that people enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, it certainly adds, and I think I had this conversation in some of our other interviews or podcast. I think one piece that I really enjoy when I look or play Age of Sigmar games is that game has probably a little bit more modern approach, because it's also like a
Hmm.
newer game, which makes sense,
Hmm.
and they are very less focused on wiping out or destroying the enemy as we are in the old world, and more
Yep.
focused on controlling whatever needs to be controlled, getting that mission in so that you can actually score your command points, or whatever it is that they do. Because I'm, again, as I said, I'm just getting into Age of Sigmar now, so I'm like, I'm studying, I'm a little bit overwhelmed,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
find that a very nice twist to the game. And I was super, super excited when GW announced the match play guide for a couple of reasons, right? So, number one is it's clear that when you make a match play guide, means you have plans for the game
Yeah.
competitively.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm right, because I would love to see those golden tickets at some point dropping
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the Old
Fingers
World 2.
crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly. But also because they will add this variety to the game that we need. It's just like, sometimes even 10 Jade Warriors, which are like normally, I gotta be honest, or Jade Lancers are like trash. Everything else in Cathay is just so strong, but like the core units are really subpar. But those become extremely important when you list build, because then if you, what do you do if you have baggage train and close quarters and domination and maybe strategic locations, maybe not all of them at the same time, but imagine that. It's like, okay, so now what do I have to take? I have to make choices, right? I have to decide what I want to give up on. And also, it automatically self balances a little bit in the list building, because instead of making 500 points flat of core, maybe I'll need 600 to make it worth, and maybe means one less lantern, which I did. And I mean, of course, like it's always, a trade-off. And like people were like, why didn't you bring 3 or 4 lanterns? I'm like, I'm playing two, never played more than
Yeah.
two. But then my units of lancers become way more complicated to manage. So, but without the scenarios like you did, like you implemented, that would mean less. So I find these scenarios a fantastic addition to the game, together with 1.5, with the 1.5 release in July. So
I think that things that keep the meta fresh, things that give TOs and players more decisions to make, more kind of agency, are really positive things. And I think part of that is because, whilst I agree with everything you just said, part of me misses just the simplicity of just going ham on the opponent's army and just trying to go all out and kill their army as best as possible and try and stop mine from being killed, which is obviously still a massive part of the game. But I think that it's great that we've got the opportunity to kind of have a mix of that and these missions. And I would love to see how creative, Games Workshop and the community can get with making these missions a bit more narrative, or seeing how we can stretch them and change them even more so that we've got even more options, like different types of strategic locations that might have effects and things like that. I think it's really exciting that Games Workshop are investing those resources, and obviously, I think the new Arcane Journal that they announced today has Path to Glory rules written into it, and then we had Battle March in the previous one, so it's
yes.
really cool to see all of these options being opened up. And I'm really excited to add a couple more missions in the next pack that I make for the Nottingham GT. And kind of see how that plays out, and be able to kind of swap in things and swap out things as the game develops.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, yeah. So, and I remember last year we made one podcast on the Welsh Open GT,
Mm-hmm.
because they came up with beautiful missions before the match play guide dropped. And
Yeah.
I remember I made like the headlines were like, "Are we looking at the base of the new match play guide?" Because I loved all of them, and I was basically saying the same thing. It's like what we need in order to uh, move move past the legacy of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. It's just that we need to keep the core of this game the same, because that's what makes this game unique. But we also
Mm-hmm.
need to be realistic and be like, we need to modernize and refresh a little bit the game, and these scenarios are just amazing to do that. So super excited to
Yeah,
see
definitely.
what's gonna be next.
Have you seen this year's Welsh Open pack?
Um, but my bad, not yet. And but I have to do it. I want to do it, and yes, I will have a look. So, anything particular interesting you wanna call out?
Yeah, so I'm attending the event as a player. So shout out to Ollie and the team down in Cardiff for doing such an amazing job. They have a beautiful pack as well. They've, because it's nearly Halloween, right? They've made it a Halloween themed event,
Oh, nice.
and so they've made some of the additional Halloween theming optional, but they've done kind of exactly some of the stuff that you were talking about and I was talking about, in terms of adapting these missions and adapting certain parts of the game to be a bit more horror centric. So I think everyone's getting like a free little banshee And one of the missions, you kind of have to escort the Banshee around, and you can control the Banshee no matter what faction you've got. And in another mission, they've got the strategic
Nice.
locations doing trick or treats on you. So if you roll a treat, your unit's fine, you control it. But if you roll a trick, that unit could take some wounds and things like that. So there are a couple of like thematic additions, which I think is really exciting. I'm looking forward to see how they
Nice.
play out. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I will have a look. And for anybody who's watching, once again, like and subscribe. Subscribe first, activate the bell, then put like, and check out the Welsh Open. You guys will see down in the description all the links to everything we discussed today. Anything that is related to Richard and his activity as a tournament organizer, anything that regards LGT, everything that we're seeing, that we saw, and that we are going to see about the armies and everything. You will find everything, including the link to the Welsh Open compact, which I look forward to. Yeah, amazing. So, and it's going to be an 80-man tournament, so it's going to be a blast. Probably the
Yeah,
biggest
definitely.
single tournament of the old world ever done, right?
Yeah, I believe it will be. Yeah. Really looking
Fantastic.
forward to it.
We need to break that 100-man, threshold, but we're gonna get there in
It's gonna
2026.
happen. It's gonna happen. Yeah. 2026 is the year for sure.
Is the year. Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
And yeah, that kind of brings it to the end of the pack. I didn't release the maps ahead of time, so tables and terrain I just kind of made clear would be preset. That I ended up giving them kind of a layout per table, so not all the tables were the exact same. So it just depended on which one you got allocated, because I did a random table system. But everyone pretty much had 2 hills, 2 buildings, 2 woods to kind of keep some of that symmetry. But some of the layouts I did give were asymmetrical, so that roll for sides was meaningful, and
Was me.
I got some good feedback from that. So yeah.
I'm also like a supporter of that, because it's true that winning or losing that roll off matters a lot, but also picking the right side matters. Deploying in the subpar side matters, and when it comes to a general skills, you have to be good at choosing your sides, and putting the right pieces in the right way, even if it's not the best or ideal pick for you. Like having it symmetrical, I like it, it's fair, I love it. I'm not against doing that at all, but I think it kind of removes a little bit of that thrill of that role. Like,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
really wanted that hill, I really wanted the hill, I need the hill,
Yeah,
and you don't
yeah,
get the hill.
definitely. Something I
No
did
hill.
to kind of enhance the randomness, but in a way that I feel is fair, and it was kind of using the inspiration of the match play guide player placed rules, was everything was kind of preset on this layout, but I got players to scatter by d6 for each terrain piece from their kind of preset location at the beginning of each game. So it meant that everyone was kind of going into a game with a very slightly different layout, and it did end up being kind of asymmetrical but symmetrical still.
Yeah.
And that took a couple of people who'd come over from 40k by surprise. But a lot
Nice.
of old world players who were coming from fantasy were really pleased with that. So it's kind of interesting to see different parts of the community respond to that in a different way. And it's great to be able to again just provide all these different options.
Yeah. At LVO, we also got a couple of Age of Sigmar competitive players trying the old world for the first time.
Mhm.
One of my players, actually, one of the 2 mirrors I did was against Tony. So Tony, if you're watching, like, hi, it was a great game, man. And super nice guy, but also like you can see, like when there is a competitive player, like he knows how to play, even if it comes from a different game
Yeah.
system. And he was like, listen, I'm thrilled. And that's why I picked Cathay, because I didn't want to pick an army that I already owned in Age of Sigmar, so I can keep the bases separated. And I was so
Yeah.
excited. I was like, I'm considering, building an army for Age of Sigmar too. I love the models. So, it's great to see this, flow and cross of people, coming and going from the different game systems. It's just like it. So,
Yeah. And our winner, Malik, was a previous LGT winner, but on the 40k side. So he actually came over to Old World because he's kind of been there and gotten the T-shirt with LGT on the 40k side of things, and then he went and did it with Old World as well. And yes, he was playing Cathay, but like you said, it's an amazing player piloting an amazing army, and you know the games that he had were fantastic. So
Yeah. Cool. Amazing. So shall we look at the results? So let's discover what happened. I mean, we kind of teased that. I think people kind of know it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here we
Spoilers,
go.
spoilers. Yeah. So here we go. So the win-loss draw system that I will be adapting going into the next one gave essentially 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss, which meant that draws were weighted more strongly than some players were expecting. Swiss points, which is 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss is the usual way of doing it. But for LGT, I just enabled the wins functionality very naively, thinking that was the right option. And then it turned out it wasn't the right option. But, you know, I think that the players who've gone undefeated through a tournament have done an amazing achievement. So there was no way I was going to undo that. So we have a bit of variety in the top three with Malik's Cathay list, which I'll dive into first.
Yeah. I mean, no big surprise. Okay.
Yeah.
The list. Okay. 384.
So you're the Cathay player here. Yeah, you're gonna know more about this than what I am. So talk us through it.
Yeah. So that's a typical build. So the Shug Lord is exactly what you would expect. The Lord of Yang, so that he can also has the magic missile, and then one extra spell. Oh, actually, that's weird. I mean, the way we are ruling it in US is that Learn Feng Shibo and Scroll of Wei Jing, they don't stack together. So you cannot get 6 spells. So, but perhaps here is, you know, interpreted in a different way. So in order to have as many spells as you can, so that you have all the spells you need from Illusion, which makes sense. And then the Big Blade, D3 wounds, 10, strength 10. Great piece. I run the exact same model with the same statistics. I just don't have the Learn Feng Shibo because they don't stack. Then Lord Magistrate on the Sky Lantern with the Alchemist Mask, Armor of Meteoric Iron, and the Crystal of Kunlan. It's perfectly the same build that I have, like very strong piece, 10 wounds, very strong. Then he was playing a second strategist on Lantern. Okay, so he went that way. Okay. With the Jade Armor, so he has Ward Save 5 up and then Regen. Sorry, not Regen. Magic Resistance 2, which is very strong. And then, okay, the usual setup. Then 18 Warriors with the Jade Banner. All right. Then he has 1 unit of 5 of Lancers. Ambushers, yes or no? No. Oh, that's interesting. With the icon. Okay, because he has the icon that doesn't allow fly movements for 1 turn and 1 ring of jet there. So that's why he doesn't want them to ambush. Then probably the other one is ambushing, right? And then 2 cannons with loaders, maybe 3. Yeah, 3 with 3 loaders, and that's it. Yeah, that's a typical build. I mean, my list is practically equal, the same. I just have a rare choice of a lantern. I don't have the other strategist. I run a Shug General, like a small little dragon, level 1, just to, you know, flank charge, you know, charge small cavalry units, war machines, and all of that. Very strong list. Very, very solid. Great job. I mean,
yeah, and great player piloting it as well. It was
and it was also fair. Like he didn't go too heavy with the Ring of Jets. Only 1. He could have done a lot worse. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we did have our 4th player Brian. His list had all of the Ring of Jets possible. I think there was 8 or something in total. I wanna take a look at this Mortuary Cult players list though, because you were talking about that Orc and Goblin list and about how players are trying to adapt to Cathay already. And we had a bit of a trend. In terms of bow Shabti, so your Shabti with bows, and their ability to take out balloons was identified by a couple of players pre-tournament, and so we have a couple of interesting Tomb Kings list. So I'll go through Ross's list here with you. I'm not a Tomb Kings player. Are you a Tomb Kings player?
I am. It happens to be like
okay, brilliant.
I am like, these are the two armies that I've been playing since the Old World dropped, and also Demon Player, but demons are like, eh. But we can do this together. So it's a level 4 on dragon, all right,
Yep.
with the Staff of Aeons. Okay, makes sense, with the magic weapon, probably with illusion. Yes, illusion, talisman of protection. All right, so that's, I usually use the Staff of Serpent, which is a great weapon for the priest, but I mean, it's not that different. I mean, the idea behind is the same. Level 4. All right, so then he has an high priest on foot with elementalism and lore familiar. All right, for Plague of Rust. So probably we're seeing like a big unit of Ushabtis
Yep.
later, and then mortuary priest, level 2 elementalism BSB, of course, because you need to reroll everything you can. So amazing, great choice.
Yep.
So three times healing, which is not bad. Rerolling. 9 Ushabtis. It's a mortuary cult, so he also heals very well, which is another
Yep.
piece. With the champion, great bows. Yeah, that's anti-Cathay. That's a list that if you pick Cathay, the Cathay player should be, playing carefully. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to lose necessarily, but it's not an easy matchup. Then 7 guys on horse archers, okay, of course, and then 2 units of skirmishers, all right, with warbows, ambusher, 1 unit as ambusher, makes sense to, one less drop, and then 2 scorpions ambushing with the terrors from below, okay. Oh, 6 more Ushabtis. Here
Yeah.
you go. So that makes it 15. All right. And 1 casket, which I appreciate. Good move here. Love that. Because 1 casket, even without necromancy, you know what? You just roll it. You just roll it. Do your leadership check. It's just like, it's fine. It's fine. And also, worst case scenario, you will have the -1 to be hit, and you get the +1 to cast, which is huge with this edition with Magic. So it gives you really an edge. I love this list. Very strong. Not so.
Yeah.
Did he come in third?
Second, actually, undefeated. So
Undefeated.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not easy to make points against this army, huh? So you're not gonna win. He's gonna heal too
Definitely
much. He's gonna bring all these models back. Somehow, some win.
Yeah, and we were running with double regen as well at the event, so that wasn't something that I changed.
Okay.
So yeah, the undead armies were more resilient as a result of that.
Very
Sure.
good. Yeah, very strong. Yeah, love it. Love it. Amazing.
We had another cafe list in third, and our third and final cafe list in fourth. They had a very good weekend overall.
Yeah.
We interviewed some players while we were there, and it was quite interesting to hear what they had to say. You had a couple who were kind of going into it knowing that it would be very difficult and thinking, oh, can I avoid them? It would be great if I didn't have to play them. And some people who just wanted to play the best thing available and just see how they could do against it, because it's not necessarily something they play locally all the time.
Right.
Pasha's list was great. I would say that that's quite similar to Malik's list, but if you wanted to go and have a look at Brian's list, we could do.
Yeah.
He took
Absolutely.
all of the Ring of Jets.
Oh, he did the whole thing. And listen, Pasha is also like an awesome player. He played against some of my teammates from Team USA in the preparation of the World Championships. I mean, I saw some of his games. He's a great guy and great player. So yeah, I'm not surprised that he scored like in the top rankings. Okay, let's look at this other list. So Lord. Oh, Monkey King with Battle Magic. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Oh, level 2 though. Okay, level 2. Okay, then. All right. That's interesting choice. 2 spells on Battle Magic and Lord of Yang. Okay. Trying to spam a little bit the magic missile, I guess, here. Lord Magistrate, the usual with the Ring of Jet. Also, he sacrificed the meteoric armor. All right. To have the Ring of Jet. I mean, that's so. Imagine that. You reserve move, you march. Well, actually, no, you can't march and shoot with that, but still, 15 inches plus 9 if you roll the winds right, 24 inches, 360.
Yeah.
Deal with that. It's
That's
very
crazy.
strong. And then he made another one strategist with the Ring of Jet. Oh, very, very bold. No word safe, no region. Okay, so this guy is naked. Four up,
Hmm.
4 up armor, and that's it. All right. And then a strategist on foot with ring of jet. Yeah, he's spamming the rings. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's a tournament. I get it.
Yeah,
Jade warriors with icon. I appreciate that. Good choice. Then 2 units of lancers, probably both ambushing. Only one. Neither of the
either.
two. Okay. Both with the Ring of Jet. Okay. So here's my quick consideration on this. I'm not a fan of not having them ambushing because you
Hmm.
have to think about that your number one opponent will be another Cathay player. And you need those drops to be low because you want that first turn no matter what. Because you
For
need
sure.
to shoot these cannons dead. T1. So I'm not a yeah, probably I prefer the other build, but that's all me. Spamming lancers with rings. Oh my
Yes.
god, I'm
Yeah.
seeing that.
Yes. This was another kind of rules interpretation. I don't know how it was done at LVO, so I'd be really interested to hear about it. But to me, the intention from Games Workshop is reasonably clear that unless otherwise restricted does not mean everything gets restricted by the combined arms. And so you could take something like 8 Doomseekers. And Brian here definitely decided to go and spam a load of Jade Lancers with Rings of Jet as a result of that. Um, and then he's ended up with many, many, many of them.
Yes. Now I see, and then rare units probably just one lancer, one lantern,
Yeah,
and no cannons.
no
Okay, so he's
cannons.
using the rings of jet as cannons. Um. Okay, so um. Well, at LVO we were actually playing the same way you did. So there are no
Okay,
restrictions because it's a magic item. And magic items are like if there is the asterisk, you can repeat as many as you want. It's just that every character can only have one of them. So you cannot have 2 rings of jet on the same model.
for sure.
So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
only restriction. Rule is written. Again, I think they will fact this FAQ this
I think so.
pretty
Yeah,
soon. But
definitely. And I mean the fact that my ruling kind of allowed him to take that many Jade Lancers as well was a factor, but certainly I think it's more the Ring of Jet being able to be spammed rather than the Jade Lancers being able to be spammed that kind of factored into this. And Brian had some really tough games. He played Cathay twice, so he had 2 mirror matches, much like yourself. And
yeah.
he lost his final one in the last game against Malik, which put him fourth and Malik top.
Mm.
So that was the kind of decider, really.
Okay. So you see, pretty similar to what happened at LVO. I mean, actually, and this is fun enough to say. So Kevin, as I said, won the tournament. Who's, by the way, I don't know if he's watching. He will be watching the episode. Is the best guy ever. Great player, fine player, amazing guy. Super nice games with him every single time. Everybody like loves him. But he's also a competitive player, right? So
For sure.
he brought the toughest he could, so 3 lanterns and all of that. Um, and he didn't get any single mirror match. So he ended up maxing
Mm,
out on the pairings. So, for example, he had a Bretonia player last game,
mhm.
T5. He had a Brett player, and I was like, okay, so, and we were like table 1 and table 2, and I was playing the mirror match against the Cathay with Meowing. And I was like, okay, I can't win this one. I mean, I will not be able to do 20-0. And he did 20. And I
Mm.
was like, okay, so I'm out. And but listen, it's part of the risk. You want to
It
play
is.
cafe? All right, you play cafe. That can happen too. So it's, as I said, it's a way to self balance. Um, I don't necessarily, not that I like I don't necessarily know if I would be able to play that many Ring of Jan because it's also not easy, right? Because you're also
Mm.
obstructing your own line of sight. It's 15 inches on a unit. It's easy to get out of the line of sight. So um, it depends, but it's certainly abusive, as we were saying, right? So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, definitely. And it's something that going forward, I'm kind of doing a little bit of cafe comp to try and bring them into kind of alignment. Nothing too hard. Obviously, you've got the no cannon stacking. The way that I've come out is kind of one character balloon or two non-character balloons, and then making sure that the Ring of Jet is treated as a unique item. Kind of what I'm going to be using kind of at the next event to see how that kind of shakes out instead.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Perfect. And
Okay.
And so, and what about? I'm curious, just for our fans watching. What about the vampire counts list? Because it's also undefeated. I'm seeing like 2 draws and 3 wins.
Yeah, so we had a good few Vampire Counts players doing well. Pip was the best placed amongst them. And his list is not necessarily the most, what people might consider to be the most tuned list either. So obviously he had a Vampire Count to start off with, which you are not necessarily seeing in all of the top Vampire Counts armies.
Yeah, agree.
Instead, you're seeing more of the double necromancer. Obviously, you've got the Mortis Engine, Scepter of Din Noiro, and Talisman of Protection for the
perfect.
The traditional kind of necromancer build. But this vampire count with the level 2 on a nightmare is definitely not something you're seeing kind of every Vampire Counts list. Tomb Banshee, only one, so not maxing out on the screams either. And then a White Lord with the Helm of Commandment and a Charm Shield. In his core, he had 20 zombies, 12 Crypt Ghouls as well. So it's quite a low number of Crypt Ghouls. I've seen bigger blocks of Crypt Ghouls being used, so that might be seen as a weak point, but perhaps useful for grabbing some of the objectives and scoring. 24 Graveguard, and then again, unusually, kind of Blood Knights coming to the Welsh Open. Louis, who's gone all in on Blood Knights, but he knows that they're a risk because they're so expensive per wound. So it's interesting to see this. List.
Yes, which I think is a brilliant choice. The one thing with the Blood Knights is they are 6, so they are not. I know it may sound a little stupid, but they are not that many. And the problem, especially with Cathay being around, is what do you do when you face a lantern and possibly the Cathay player gets the Alchemist mask off, and then you have Plague of Rust on them. It's like they're gone in one turn. And so that's those 5 hex rates. If you have no magical weapons, those things are very painful. They are a pain in the neck beyond. They can easily take 300-400 points, 3 times their cost in terms of points taken. So just so the vampire count sits in the Blood Knights on the nightmare. I'm also seeing some builds with the Lord being either on the Zombie Dragon or the Abyssal Terror, which is the other option when you want to have a monster and kind of spam a little bit that. But no surprise that the guy did very well and didn't lose. I mean, it's a solid army. You heal a lot and you score very well. So
definitely, and it was a beautiful army as well. So we had the best overall for the sportsmanship that with and he had a really, really brilliant kind of centerpiece, like a stained glass window that he'd made, and he had like a little owl lamp behind it to kind of show the stained glass off. So
please let's see some armies. I mean, I would love to see some examples, and then we can wrap up. But yes, that mission. But
you're very welcome. Yeah. I want to just give one more shout out on the list. I won't go back to them, but Jack Negus on High Elves, who was 6th place. He was playing Lothern Seaguard, which I was really excited to see. I feel like they've got a lot of play that hadn't necessarily been tapped, and I think Jack's one of the players that might be starting to tap into that. So we'll see where it goes. So Yeah, well done to Jack on that, coming to
Beautiful,
fly
yeah,
offs too.
impressive, yeah.
Photos, but hopefully you can get the gist of some of these. Yeah.
Oh,
So
look
we
at
have
that.
Greg Jones's dwarves here. He won best baggage train. This little central item here as his baggage train. Yeah,
I was about to say that, to call that. I think baggage train equals dwarfs. Like the idea in my mind, it's all about those barrels of beer, bugmans, and all of that. Nice. Look at that. Ready to drink, ready to party. Oh, look at that. Look at the counter.
Yeah.
I didn't see the counter with the small barrels. I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
Loads of great details in there.
And I love the bases too.
Yes. Yeah, they
Amazing.
stick out as really, really good.
Oh,
This was Matt Crawford's army. He won best painted single model for this wonderful forest
for the dragon. Oh my god.
Yes, yeah, and you can see the leaves kind of spreading across the backs of the wings.
It's amazing.
Backs of the wings as well. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. I also love the baggage train. Look at that. I don't know.
Yes.
It looks to me almost like an Age of Sigmar style, made perfectly for baggage trains too. But I love it. It's so Wood Elf. I love it. Amazing army.
It's really nice.
Amazing army.
I think that was second in the running for best baggage train. We had some really fantastic armies, not just Matt's. I think Richard, not to skip past the Chaos Dwarf, we had two Chaos Dwarf players here. This is Tyrone's. He was our wooden spoon, but with his lovely, I think it's his Iron Demon here. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, the Iron Demon with the steam, steam coming out. Yeah, I love that. I love this Cathay army. This is so good. I love this color palette with like the jade on the lantern. So good.
Yeah, and the little kind of cherry blossom trees as well. That's really, as a Cathay player, but boy, those models are impressive to see on the table, and
it's so good. Like, and I have a feeling after seeing the release today of the Marauder Horseman and on foot, that the level of the tables aesthetically will improve dramatically, because as they come out with new stuff, even the new stuff from TK, I just ordered my kit with the sorcerer on horse and on foot, the new Lich Priest. They're just amazing. Yeah. So can't wait to see everyone, getting in those kits and painting them all, and it's gonna be awesome. And by the way, we have an announcement at the end, but like I leave it for the very last second.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But beautiful armies,
Definitely. I think I started off as Richard Swallow's best army, his Chaos Warriors, his Zinch flavored Chaos Warriors, and I mean, just kind of look at the color palette and the blending going on here that you can kind of just make out on these guys on the left hand side. And it was like that.
Yes, those are Zinch warriors or Forsaken. I mean, but they're I would say warriors probably, but like they look amazing. I love the color scheme. It's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, listen, as I said, I think this is another example of the golden age, the new golden age of fantasy for tabletops. I'm not personally a huge fan of the new models of the Chaos Dwarfs. I was like, craving for them. I was like, I would have, of course, preferred to see them in the old world, but I was like, listen, I don't care, because I love them. I wanted to make an army. After seeing the models, I think I'm not sure. Even for Age of Sigmar, I think they can do so much better that I was like a little bit. The Taurus, the Bell Taurus, is amazing.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
But the other models, I'm like, I was expecting a little. The Bull Centaurs are nice.
Yeah.
Which I see definitely as a fit in the Old World too. But the other models are like, but we are preparing to see amazing miniatures on the
on the
on the
table. Yeah, for
on
sure.
the
And I
tables.
mean,
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier about legacy army support, and obviously from a commercial perspective, people are going to be buying those models to use in the old world because they can use those chaos dwarves as a legacy army, and they're going to be excited to do so. My wife Sophie, who is also at LGT supporting me, she wants to get some chaos dwarves. She's a dwarf player, so the reason why she wants to is because she wants the kind of natural enemy. So she's got kind of an army on, and so it's great to have that more of that model availability for sure. I do agree. I feel like they're trying to do something a bit different with the aesthetic, which makes sense, I guess, from a new army perspective. But I guess it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. We'll see how they shape up on the table.
No, I absolutely. I mean, I agree. It's yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I feel like um, between resurrecting old kits, making new ones, having two systems now for Fatful, kit bashing, anything can be done. So I am so happy, and after today, I'm also like very very excited and very very positive about everything else that they will do with the 10 armies we have, and maybe at some point we will have some legacy back. Maybe not all of them, but maybe just a few of them. I would be happy anyway. So we'll see. And to end with this, I'll share my screen real quick. Since we were talking about models, for everyone's listening, remember, like and subscribe and like, put the bell on. And we have a sponsorship going on with Workshop Lab Miniatures, so you can find them, of course, on internet. They have a beautiful Etsy shop, but they also have a special offer for all the Sun Tzu Secrets YouTube channel subscriber. You will get 30% off at Workshop Lab Miniatures on all Games Workshop original products. So Warhammer 40K, Warhammer The Old World, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, and and every other game that Games Workshop's doing. In order to access the promotion, just send an email to you see it here in the slide, workshoplabminiatures@gmail.com. That's the email, and put in the subject Sun Tzu Secrets. You will get 30% off. So that's a little bit of a gift from us for following our channel. So subscribe and put like. So with that, we come to a wrap, I think. So Richard, you wanted to let us know about your next event, right? So you have something else coming soon.
I do. Can I share my screen again for a moment?
Absolutely. I'll bring it up. Here
Thank
we
you.
go.
So this is the next UKTC event following LGT. It's one of the biggest ones in the calendar again, obviously Nottingham being kind of the city of Warhammer. January 10th and 11th, just outside Nottingham in Harvey Haddon Sports Village. We've got another 2,000 points, 5 games. And then on the Friday night before the tournament kicks off, we're actually going to Warhammer World to have a little social at Bugman's Bar, of all places. So I really look forward to that.
Fantastic.
The general shape of the event is very similar. Instead, we're using the Swiss points for win-loss draw, and we're using the 20-point system for tournament points. Okay. And I'm really excited to host it.
Fantastic. So more to come. So you will find the link to the event in the description for everything related. And there's also a Discord server for anybody who's on Discord. If you want to keep an eye open on all the UKTC events happening, there's a beautiful server. I'm on that one. You will find all the information there. But there's plenty on the pipe. So I'm so excited about that. But for today, Richard, it was so good to have you. I cannot thank you enough to have found the time to join the channel.
You're very welcome. It's been fantastic to chat with you, and I'm really glad that we could and talk about all the good stuff that the community are doing, the great events that are going on, LVO, LGT, everything coming up as well. And yeah, I feel like you said, we're in a golden age, we're in a really positive place. And yeah, like you were saying before, with the kind of kit bash potential, we've just had a new Marauder kind of set of models, army, I don't know exactly what yet, released or announced, and we've already got the amazing kits available in the old world, the old style Marauders, and the Dark Oath stuff from Age of Sigmar. So what a great place to be for someone who loves the hobby.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So that's amazing. So stay tuned for more. And we will be back soon with the episode with all the three captains of the podium of the World Championship. So we will have England, Belgium, and Italy in the next round, and we will have Andy from LVO, the tournament organizer from Las Vegas. So plenty to come, even in English. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Click like and subscribe. We need to get to 100 likes for every video. Please don't forget that. And Richard, again, thank you so much. Go to all his events because this guy is running something beautiful for the old world in UK. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you too. Very kind words. Thanks so much.
Thank you.